welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. I'm Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find my work at NBC Sharks on Twitter, Sheng_Peng, and Blue Sky, Sheng Peng.
And I'm Keegan McNally. You can find me on Twitter at halfwall_hockey, my website half-wallhockey.com, or at San Jose Hockey Now. This week, we welcome back Cam Robinson, which is going to be exciting. But before that, Shang, we have a word from our sponsor, of course.
Yes, and let's show our shirts off here. Huh?
Oh, yeah. I am
there
the
you
director
go.
of
This
vibes.
is the Mac Attack. Well, Mac Attack, not quite good enough for the Calder there, so we'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, a word from our sponsor, Bring Hockey Back, bringhockeyback.net. Go to Bring Hockey Back for awesome custom hockey jerseys. You want any kind of order for your adult team or for some kind of corporate kind of event, go to bringhockeyback.net for your custom hockey jerseys. But also, too, obviously, the shirts that we're wearing. I'm wearing a Macklin Celebrini Mac Attack t-shirt. Keegan has the Director of Vibes t-shirt. I believe you can go to Bring Hockey Back and still purchase these t-shirts. If you go on there to buy the t-shirts, use the coupon code. The coupon code is San Jose Hockey Now. Once again, it's San Jose Hockey Now at bringhockeyback.net and save 15%.
Beautiful. Love it. While supplies last, I'm sure they are selling many t-shirts. That one's really good. Yeah, I like that one a lot.
It looks good when it's coming up the camera.
Yeah. Director of Vibes, people may not understand it, but it's still a good shirt. It's also very clean, very nice. Anyway, yes, Mac did win the Calder, which we kind of knew isn't going to happen. I think the more interesting thing is Mac got third. It was very close between second and third, between Dustin Wolf, who got second, and Mac getting third. But I just thought he was like a lock for number 2. I don't know why. I guess my San Jose brain.
For what it's worth, and I think I mentioned this in earlier podcasts, just to get ahead of it, because I think people expect because I cover the Sharks, I would vote Macklin Celebrini number 1 for Calder, and I did not. I put a lot of weight into Lane Hutson first, coming up really big to get the Canadians to the playoffs. And also, too, a lot of people say, oh, Lane is just a power play specialist. Lane played over 22 minutes a night. And I believe he is the only defenseman to even come close to that kind of usage. And so while he is not he's not a shutdown defenseman, he's 5'8" and whatnot, that he does play tough minutes against tough competition at 5-on-5. You can't do that if you're playing 22 minutes a night. And his ability to kind of control play is really important. His ability to move the puck up. So he is one of those guys that kind of fits in the Erik Karlsson argument of the best defense is to not play defense that much.
Yeah, for sure.
But Lane is great at that, though, is the point, though. Lane is great at moving the puck across multiple zones, gaining the zone, all that kind of stuff. And so all that accounted for me giving Lane Hutson my number 1 pick. I'll talk a little bit more about that. I gotta write a little bit about that today. But I thought that Macklin and Dustin Wolf was, I think, pretty interchangeable. I mean, I did think Macklin would get number 2, but I'm not really surprised by Wolf being number 1. Wolf honestly might have won it if he had been able to lead the Flames to the playoffs, and he was pretty close at that. And so it was very, very, very close. Wolf had a tremendous season. He was, I think, arguably the Flames MVP, and they were very, very close to the playoffs. I think they were surprised to be as good as they ended up being this year. And I think a lot of that you credit to Wolf. You compare Wolf's numbers to his backups too. And there's a big difference between Wolf and Vladar's numbers and stats behind the same team. And so that kind of suggests Wolf's value too. So I thought it was really close between those two. I gave it to Macklin. To give Macklin his credit, Macklin basically was the number 1 center on the worst team in the league, which on one hand gave him a lot of minutes that maybe he didn't have to, how do you say it? Number 1 minutes that you can argue, he wouldn't have got on a better team.
Yeah, probably not, for sure.
But he was actually pretty good in those minutes, I would say, overall. And I think he actually did put out a credible showing for a guy that was forced to be a number 1 center of a bad team. So this is not a case where I felt like he was just benefiting from a bad team. I think on a good team, I think he could have been a 2C on it. For sure. I do feel strongly about this, that he's good enough to be a 2C on a good playoff team. And so he had an excellent season too. And I said this before too when we talked about this, that don't worry about the Calder. I think Macklin's going to have the best career out of all these guys. that's
all
what
that
really matters in the end.
Yeah, and he still was the best forward, right? Like
I
he
think
was
so.
going against a defenseman and a goaltender who had exceptional seasons by many standards. Lane had like record-breaking point totals, and you know, it's very rare for a guy like Wolf to come in like that and have as many wins as he does at his size, and that he just had a great year. And Macklin, best forward, probably the most important going forward, although you could argue goalie is always the most important. But I think Macklin's going to have, like you said, the most impactful career overall. Not that those two guys won't as well. So I'm not mad. I'm a little sad, but not. I knew it was going to happen. So,
and you can't vote the Calder that way though. It's not.
True.
It's not. You don't get more credit if you're a younger guy like Macklin is. You don't get more credit if your team sucks more.
Yeah, you don't. It's like the Crosby Ovechkin debate. Like, yes, Crosby is like a different type of player, and Ovechkin won the Calder that year because Ovechkin had a better year. Like,
exactly.
It is what it is.
You just vote who had the better year, and also too, for me, this is a big part of it. If Lane Hutson put up those points, but he was playing like 17, 18 minutes a night, and he was really the power play specialist that people want to say that he is, then I would have voted Macklin ahead of him. Macklin was playing 19 minutes a night as the Sharks' #1 center. But much the same way as last year, Brock Faber played 22 plus minutes a night. He was the #1 defenseman on the Minnesota Wild, and he did provide more of a two-way game, which I give more credit to than Lane Hutson. That I know Bedard won it last year, but I had Faber as my #1. And so also considering the difficulty of position too for a young guy, that I think a starting defense, and I think you can argue starting goaltender too, is tougher. #1 center is up there too, but we all kind of agree. We always talk about how difficult it is for a defenseman to transition into his first season. We're talking about that. We're going to talk with Cam Robinson about that with Sam Dickinson. And so that's another thing that personally in my vote that I'm consistent about. And so I had Faber. So the same token, Faber over Bedard last year. And while Hudson's season wasn't quite as impressive, even with the record points as Faber's, for the record, if the 2024 and 2025 Calder classes were competing against each other, Faber would still be my #1 vote. But I'd probably go like Faber 1, Hudson 2, Celebrini 3, Wolf 4, Bedard 5, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, though, I think that's a big part of it too. So I think look a little harder at the stats. Look a little bit harder at the micro stats for Lane Hutson when you want to just call him, oh, he just puts up points and he's playing with better players than Macklin. I mean, the Canadians are a good team, but they're not exactly. Yeah, this isn't the 77 Canadians he's on. So Lane Hutson was their best offensive defenseman by far. And that's a credit to Lane. That's not a credit. That's not the credit to Cole Caulfield or Marty St. Louis.
I think it's interesting that the top 6, 5 of the top 6 are players that are like under 6 feet tall, or essentially 6 feet or under, right? They got like Mitchkov, Celebrini, Smith.
Oh, that's interesting.
Dustin Wolf,
I didn't think about that, right? Yeah.
Lane Hutson. The only one there is Cutter Gauthier, who got, I think, 5th.
Right.
He's taller, but like, just a bunch of short guys killing it. Not short, you know what I mean?
Short kings.
Short. I'm as like
I know what you mean.
Macklin.
Hockey relative.
Yeah, hockey relative short. So anyway, it's interesting. It's there are still draft inefficiencies, and that kind of somewhat proves it, right? Dustin Wolf is the 7th round pick. Lane Hutson is a 2nd round pick.
Okay. It's fair with Hutson and Wolf for sure. Short defensemen, short goalies are definite draft inefficiencies. I don't know if you can put the same argument with Smith and Celebrini. They were 1 and 4 picks, right? Yeah. So
Mitchkov was 7 for a bunch.
Yeah, Mitchkov was 7, and Mitchkov didn't fall because of his height. There's other things. So.
Yeah. Anyway, just interesting to note because all of the talk, everybody, and this actually goes into our combine talk if you wanted to, but everything is about how big a guy is and how much
Sure.
how that 6'6" frame or that 6'4" frame or that how a guy appears because it's the combine is going to play into their NHL career, and then conversely, guys that are shorter, right? Cameron Schmidt and Ben Kindle, guys who have a lot of skill but are tiny, are getting pushed down the pages a little bit. So there will be every year these guys that make it in the NHL despite their size every single
Sure.
year.
Of course.
So
Of course.
try and find them if you're interested in looking for them. Anyway, let's talk about something more interesting. Always interesting. Free agent and trade talk. The Sharks, because they were active at the last year's draft, I don't know if that's the reason or just because there's so many holes and so much money that the Sharks have in cap space. They're in a lot of rumors for guys, at least peripherally. We're not, and obviously these are rumors. It's hard to confirm things right now.
Right.
But there's a lot of names out there, and you've got a list of guys that you've heard. You've got a
yeah,
list.
because there's been a whole ton of trade rumors over the last week, and I'm trying to parse out what's who's real, who's not. And real for the Sharks, by the way, too. And some of the parameters that I think the Sharks have laid out, and I believe is true, even if there are some conflicting reports out there. But as of now, though, I do tend to believe that the Sharks, as Mike Career has stated, and of course that's not just because Mike Career says it doesn't mean that it's true. But Mike Career has stated pretty clearly that there isn't really an appetite for long UFA contracts this summer, that the Sharks aren't quite there yet. And so I think you can already rule out a bunch of names for that reason. Another reason you can rule out a bunch of names is that the team's making a trade that they probably are looking to get closer to a Stanley Cup than farther. And the Sharks offer their main kind of war chest, right, is obviously not playoff caliber players that can help you win now.
No.
Otherwise, the Sharks would be winning now. But it's in futures. The Sharks do have a ton of assets in that regard, draft picks and prospects, and maybe not spare prospects, but prospects that kind of duplicate each other. The Sharks do have prospect depth and high-end prospect depth for sure. And I guess it is possible that you can trade these draft picks and high-end prospects, and those teams that want to win, they can use those assets to get the player they want. So that things like that are possible, but in kind of a direct one-for-one trade for, say, a Jason Robertson, for example, that's a name out there, trying to throw one out there, right? That Dallas is trying to win a Stanley Cup. Dallas is not trying to get farther from the Stanley Cup. So that's going to be a tough one. That there's more likelihood of what they would call a hockey trade, right? Than a trade for one of these kind of trade assets that is sort of like, hey, we're going to take your really good player for a bunch of prospects. And so there's not really a fit there also too. And also another not fit besides, okay, so we talked about the Sharks war chest and also the Sharks not want to give out long contracts. The Sharks also will be hard pressed for an offer sheet to offer one this summer because, well, not only maybe the players aren't worth it, but also too, the Sharks have to put in their 2026 first. You have to put in your own first round pick in the offer sheets.
Yep.
And the Sharks, I doubt, are going to risk that for a RFA that's out there.
They might do their second and third round picks though.
Right, but they don't have their third round pick right now. They'll need to reacquire that.
Yes.
So that's a much lower end offer sheet. But we're talking about, I think the first round threshold is, I think it's about 5 million or something, like 5 million AAV for offer sheet. That's going to be Keandre Miller, who we talked with Cam Robinson about. That's not really in the cards for the Sharks because, I mean, you're not going to trade a good chance for Gavin McKenna for, no offense to Keandre Miller, who's a good player. But anyway, so I know I've been talking for a long time here, but we've established kind of the three parameters that kind of limit how the Sharks can improve themselves. So I'm just going to toss out a bunch of names that I know Sharks fans will love to have on their team that are good players, but I just don't think will fit for different reasons. So Mitch Marner, number 1. Aaron Ekblad, Provorov. I'm going with the UFAs here right now. I think Matthew Shane and John Tavares, I think that they're looking to win. That's the sense that I feel. And so I don't know if the Sharks will fit there. Nikolai Ehlers, I'm not sure if he is trying to quote unquote win a Stanley Cup next year, but he's going to be a guy, again, long-term contract here we're talking, right? Sam Bennett, same kind of thing. And then now we talk about some trade targets that are out there, right? Which I, again, don't really see the fit, and I could be wrong, but Jason Robertson, Noel Dobson, I know that's been a popular kind of fantasy trade target for the Sharks, but it looks like with Matthew Darche and UGM coming in, doesn't feel like the Islanders are trying to break it apart. It would make sense if Islanders were trying to break it apart, but I don't think that they are. Doesn't seem like it. JJ Paterka, the Sabres are trying to win, and so that one's a tough one. Doesn't sound like they want to trade him.
Yeah.
Rasmus Anderson. Let's see. Well, Sam Girard, I think we kind of heard out there, right? Mason Marchment, maybe cap casualty kind of thing, right? And William Karlsson's one too that we've heard bandied about. But William, I did check on this one because I mentioned it on the last podcast with Bill Hoppy that I did kind of hear a combine that name suggested. But I will add to that though, sure. He is a very good player, but he is actually kind of not a bargain, but he's a good value at 5.9 million AAV over the next couple of years. So he's not somebody that I would think Vegas is hungry to trade he's still a very good player. He's a good two-way player. He's a good playoff player, and he makes a reasonable amount of money. So for a playoff team, that's usually the kind of player that you try to keep. Yeah. So not seeing that. And I checked in with a couple of with Vegas writers, Sinbin. Those are my guys out there, and it didn't make sense to them. So I'm not sure about that one. So okay, so I've given you a lot of bad news, Sharks fans. At least my projections right now. I'm writing more about this, but here are a few names that maybe are a little more realistic, but still going to be tough for different reasons. So Keandre Miller, right, is up there because he is very much in trade rumor. He is very much available, it sounds like. Cam Robinson reported it. Larry Brooks wrote more about it recently. So that's a lot of confirmation there. But again, though, that the Rangers are trying to win now. And so I don't know the fit there. Maybe they might take a player that can help them now and a high draft pick. And the Sharks can offer that next year, not in terms of an offer sheet, but they can put Edmonton's first round pick next year in play. So maybe Bo Byram, who we talked with Bill Hoppy about. And with Bill, at least, we kind of concluded that the Sharks and the Sabres aren't great trade partners just for that reason that the Sabres are trying to snap their 14-year playoff streak. And so trading a good player like Byram, who they are trying to trade, and he's not a great fit for them because they have a Power and Dolan. They're on the power play and making a lot of money on their defense. So he is available, but do the Sharks have the assets that can help the Sabres now? And I think that's a major question mark. So it's a little more realistic target because we know for sure these guys are available. But yeah, I think Granlund we've mentioned a lot, right? Free agency target, and I did hear during the combine, and Elliot Friedman did mention. I've heard. I think other report. I think I've seen it elsewhere too that that Dallas does want to bring him back. I think that for Dallas, it's not just the on the ice play, but it's also Granlund's leadership in the room, the respect that he engenders, especially among the many Finns on the team. If you look at Granlund's career track, I mean, he was a celebrity in Finland when he came out with the Wild. So he's very, very, very respected by all hockey people, but especially among the Finns, and that's a very serious contingent for the Stars, obviously, between Ratnan and Hintz and Heiskanen. So that's actually there is something behind that. I'm not sure if they would throw Robertson overboard for Granlund. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially if they're trying to win now. I think it could be more like they will try to sign Granlund, and then they're going to try to throw Robertson and other pieces overboard so they can make a pitch for Marner That makes
Mhm.
sense. That's making your team better that way. So, but there's a little more. If Granlund does make it to free agency, like I said, everything I reported, I think I still stand by that he was willing to sign a shorter term deal with the Sharks, probably higher AAV, that he liked staying with the Sharks.
Sure.
And so I think that can still happen if he hits free agency, but we don't know if he will.
Mhm.
And let's see, a couple other guys. Chris Kreider,
Yep.
he has 2 years left at 6.5 million AAV. His production is dropping, even though he still did top 22 or top 20 goals last year. And so there might be something there, though. I think Kreider still has trade value, though. And Kreider does have a 15 team no trade list. And chances are the Sharks are on there. I don't know that for a fact, but chances are.
Mhm.
And so Chris Drury and Mike Brewer will not be able to do the Barkley Gaudreau waiver wire route, I would suspect. I think that if they really want to move Kreider, that they can get not a lot, but they can get something for him. And the last guy, and then I'll let you jump in here. So sorry, I've been talking for a while,
Yeah.
is Nick Hague. And Nick Hague, Vegas trying to clear cap space. He's a guy that has some kind of maybe upside because he hasn't been used in a top four role by the Golden Knights, and he might have the ability. And so
Mhm.
I think he could be a good target for the Sharks there. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, go
Couple
ahead.
couple couple names jump off that list. I think you're right about the Keandre Miller thing. I think an
Mhm.
offer sheet, it's not going to work out. There's just
Mm.
they're not going to do the first round pick, and it's too much
Yeah.
money. But an offer sheet for like Nick Hague could work because Vegas isn't always in a cap crunch, no matter what. Like they get out
Right.
of it, but they are always in it. That's what happened last year with Edmonton, and they got Broberged, right? They didn't.
Broberg.
Well, they gave a like Broberg was not worth $4.6 million, right? But they gave it to him because they hoped that he will become that, and he had a
Right.
good year. So that's something that you could think about with Nick Hague as well. Like, do you give him $4.6 million, even though Nick Hague may not be worth 4.6 million because you can
Hmm.
afford it, and because Vegas probably won't match that, and you give Vegas your second round pick instead. So that's something that if you really liked Nick Hague, and I like him, he's a big, um, sturdy defenseman. But and you're right. Like I think him being behind a bunch of good guys for so long means that on the Sharks he's going to get more minutes than he's been used to, and maybe there's something there, and he can actually develop into a $4.6 million defenseman. But that would
Yeah.
be my
And
interesting offer sheet
just to
candidate.
remind people, the thresholds for the offer sheets this year,
Hmm.
4.688 million to 7 million, basically AAV. That might be the Keandre Miller area. And that is your first round pick next year and your third round pick next year.
Yep.
So that's those two things are the Sharks don't want to offer, and that's the third round pick they don't have to offer.
Yeah. So that's not
But
happening.
Keegan, yeah, you hit the perfect place. So Nick Hague might be the next tier is 2.34 million AAV to 4.68, and that's your second round pick next year, which the Sharks do have. So
Yeah, and Nick Hague was making 2.2 for the last 3 seasons, so he's basically getting double his money,
mhm.
and he would sign that, I imagine, unless he really, really wants to be in Vegas for whatever reason. They win cups and such. Who cares?
Yeah.
And then he takes a haircut, but I think he's probably looking for a bigger. And this is his last year before Easy UFA, so
Hmm.
it's or they just trade for him outright. I think he's one of those guys that get classic Vegas style that they do trade for something. Um, and then they trade that something for another player that's going to help them win. So
That's a good question. I should check on if Nick Hague is worth more than a second round pick. Because in that case, then
yeah,
yeah, a trade might make sense. Though Vegas, though they just we just saw though that Peter Angelo that there's some concern over his
mm,
long term kind of or his playing future next year, and so maybe they keep Hague then because
yeah,
maybe they need to.
yeah. I feel like he's been so durable and so omnipresent for so long. But yeah, he's old. He's 35.
Yeah. On the flip side, though, actually, though, maybe that actually makes Vegas players for a guy like Ekblad, who I know a lot of Sharks fans would like and
Mhm.
has done a great job for the Panthers the last couple of years. But that's one of those things where if Florida can't sign him, and if you're Vegas, if you can't beat them, if you can't beat the Panthers, then join them, kind of.
Yep.
So that actually could make a lot of sense. So maybe that's how the Pietrangelo, if Pietrangelo goes into LTIR or something, that could be the situation there.
And then he's magically healthy for the playoffs anyway. I'm just joking. The Vegas way. Yeah, I think in the Keandre Miller, I think it would be a trade, but maybe they'd want like Ferraro probably from our defense plus a lot of stuff because Keandre's got a higher offensive ceiling than Ferraro, but they still need a player to come back to eat the minutes that Keandre would be losing. So
right. No, Ferraro could be a positive piece in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd be the centerpiece, but
he'd be positive.
I could see that though, that you can have a guy that comes in and eats some of the minutes, but then you free up some money to spend it better elsewhere on somebody out there that you like more.
Yeah, and you get an asset to
that
the Sharks have
help
to give.
the system out in the future, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's a possibility. It's just we'd have to talk with Rangers guys about that one. It's interesting because he's out there, so somebody's probably every year there's like a couple of these names that if they're out there, they're gonna get traded. And it seems like Hague and Keandre Miller are those two guys so far.
I mean, Ferraro and the Edmonton pick next year, that could be a start to something, maybe.
Yeah.
For Miller, because I think Ferraro is probably worth more than that 3rd round pick, at least.
So it's a gamble, right?
Yeah.
You got to because you still have to sign Keandre Miller to probably a big contract, and he's got to play up to that contract too. So.
Right, which we don't know. We got to be honest too. There's a reason why the Rangers are looking to give up a 25-year-old defenseman that has all the tools in the world supposedly, but who hasn't quite put it together. And the Rangers are trying to win now, so you have to kind of look at, okay, there's reasons why the Rangers obviously kind of faltered last year, and how much was Miller a part of that?
Yeah, we get Hague and Miller, and we just have a defense full of trees, right? We've got Mukabadulin, Hague, Keandre Miller.
That would be kind of fun. No right-handers that I mixed.
No right-handers, no.
Yeah, I think Nick Hague's a left-hander. Yeah,
he is. So, yeah.
Okay.
He's lefty. Keandre Miller's lefty. Mukabadulin's lefty, although he plays right sometimes. So plays on the right side. I mean, yeah. And then we have Vinny Desharnais, who's another. He's a redwood. He's even bigger.
Right. I mean, that wouldn't be the worst kind of bridge defense for the Sharks. That
so you can get the real top scorers.
Yeah, until you can get Dickinson worked in and whoever else they have coming up. But yeah.
There's at least options for Mike Grier to improve the D.
Yeah. There are.
And with 4, 8 picks in the next 2 years in the top 2 rounds, there's options there too.
Yeah, Hague and Miller are kind of like the age you like to, in terms of they might be able to grow with Macklin also. I think you're kind of looking for guys in that age range that can grow with Macklin, or if you're looking for a short term like Ranlund, guys that are good in a room, great examples, and you give them a lot of money for a couple of years, and you don't worry about that because of how the cap is growing. And so that's kind of the sweet spot of guys that we're looking at talking about here for the most part.
Yeah. And then if there is a star winger available like Peterka or Robertson or whatever that is, coming into that age range as well, maybe you look at him. But I don't think that that's the Sharks' main targets. I don't think that they're going to be the ones to swing at that, right?
Right.
They have a bigger need on the back end than they
It's
do
also the trade fit too, right? Like we talked about, if Dallas was looking to break it apart, then the Sharks would be more than competitive for Jason Robertson.
Yep.
If all the Stars were looking for was to start over, but obviously the Stars aren't looking for that, and the Sabres are just looking to start.
Yeah, right. They haven't even. Yeah.
So I think a trade fit is a lot of it. And Cam Robinson talks about it with the Rangers too, that even though the Rangers do look like a team that is headed the wrong way, obviously missing the playoffs last year, but the Rangers spent a lot to acquire JT Miller last year. So I don't think that they're ready to break it apart. It could be a situation, if we're really talking about this in the future, and I think we probably should, this is very speculative, but a team like Vancouver, And not this summer, but in a year or two, if Quinn Hughes is headed out, they might be like, okay, we run the course with this Hughes Pedersen thing, and so then you could sort of pick apart their talent in a it'll be the reverse where they might be rebuilding and the Sharks can take advantage of it, but not necessarily for Quinn Hughes because he's probably going to New Jersey, but other guys on the Canucks. But that's kind of an example of like where the Sharks assets could fit a trade. But at the moment though, I'm not really seeing that though.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough. The partners are slim. Like all the rebuilding teams have sold off their things, right? Like
Yeah, I
at
think
the
for the
same
most part,
time.
huh? Mm-hmm.
Chicago, us, like Anaheim's building, not
Yeah.
selling. There's not a lot of active rebuilding in terms of selling off the assets. Like it happened the past couple of years, but it's not. And it was mostly us, Chicago, and all those teams. But
like Seattle might be a team if the things don't go right for them this season, then maybe they start to break it. Like so, there things can happen by mid-season next year, trade deadline next year, or next off season. Maybe that's the time where the Sharks can kind of put these chips in play. The many chips that Mike Grier has accumulated. But I'm not sure if this summer. Yeah, I don't see I can't think of a team that has assets that's actively trying to break it apart at this moment.
Yeah, which is strange. It's
It is weird, huh? Yeah, now I think about it, huh?
We're looking through. I'm looking at every single team, and every team's like, we want to get better. We want to get better. Like,
yeah, they seem close enough, right? Where they like even the Kings, right? They lost in the first round over 4 straight years. You might think that would be a team that would be like, hey, time to break it up a little bit, but no, they just hired Ken Holland, and they seem like favorites for Mitch Marner. So they might need to clear some cap space for Marner. So that's where maybe you can take advantage and swoop in on somebody. So that could happen, but not in the classic rebuild sense.
Lord knows what Philadelphia is doing, but it's whatever they're like. I don't know what that, but they have 3 first-round picks this year, so like they're looking to build and draft. They're not selling, I don't think, right now, and even the guys they have there, I don't think the Sharks are that interested. So,
well, they'd be interested in connecting, maybe
for sure, yeah.
Yeah,
but I think it's a weird time in the NHL. There's not a lot of true like rebuild selling off teams right now. Yeah. Anyway, just an interesting observation. Any we're going to talk about obviously the free agency and trade throughout the whole summer. So we're going to have many more shows about that, everybody.
Yep.
Don't you worry. These were just some pre-combine stuff that was out there.
Yeah, or now there is a lot on sort of the hot stove right now, but for the Sharks though, I'm not again, I think we're trying to deduce what makes sense for the Sharks though.
Any other combine gossip? We talked about it last week that you had shared some insights, but anything else specifically from the combine?
Well, I think we'll get to it with Cam in a little bit, but I actually wanted to get your thoughts on some of the things that we've been hearing. Scott Wheeler put out that while he still thinks the Sharks will pick Misa, that Caleb Desnoyers is a name that he's heard that don't rule him out at number 2. I've also I mentioned that I wouldn't rule out Antoine Frundell. That's a little bit of what I've heard, but Scott seemed pretty strong about Desnoyers in terms of just that Well, I shouldn't say strong. He still thinks it's going to be Misa, but what are your thoughts on either of those guys, Desnoyers or Frundell? And just to preview, guys, too, King is not going to give it away. Keegan is still going to put out his draft rankings, I think, next week. But anyway, your thoughts on those two in particular, though?
Yeah, I think I would not enjoy that at all. I think I think Misa's a better player than both of them, and a more fitting player for the Shark system. Like Desnoyers is going to be a center, and he's going to be a good hockey player. And I know there's a lot of fans of him. I don't think that the absolute skill level is all there in terms of offensive production with him as it is with Misa. Misa, it seems like the game, and it does for Desnoyers too. The game comes very, very easily offensively, but in a way that's a little bit more than Desnoyers. Desnoyers is also playing in the queue, and watching and evaluating the queue is like watching and evaluating the MHL. They're not entirely equivalent, but I always
Yeah, that's pretty
they're
rough. Yeah.
yeah, they're not entirely equivalent, but I always unless there is absolute specialness,
Mhm.
you fall into this trap every time. Like the MHL and the QMJHL are just not amazing leagues, and I
Mhm.
don't see the absolute specialness with NOA. But I could be wrong. It's my opinion. Um, like you watch guys like Mitchkov or in the MHL, and it was like he's not even like he's playing a different sport than them,
Mhm.
and that's not what I'm seeing with Caleb in the Q. He's not playing a
Okay.
different sport. He's just dominating the sport.
Yeah.
Um, so but he's still going to go top 5, top 6. He's got a lot of other tools, and he's going to be a center at the next level, very likely. So this draft has an abundance of centers, which is rare for a draft, and makes it guys like Porter Martone and Eklund likely to fall in a way that is interesting if you're looking for just a super good wingers rather than centers. Because I think Jake O'Brien, Frondell, Dana Way, Hagens, Misa, they're going to push
Yep.
all of these guys down, or at least a lot of them. So there's going to be value to be had. The Sharks just don't have the 7 to 13 range pick this year, which is kind of,
Mhm.
I say 7 to 10 range probably, that they could use to get a second really, really good piece, I think. After that 10 range, it starts to get a little bit hairy, and you're getting
Mhm.
good guys, good players, but not like this guy could hit and transform a line. So
Right. 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 Right.
I like Frondell too, but I
Mhm.
still I don't think Frondell could. He's physically developed. He's playing in a men's league already, so
Mhm.
there's a lot there. But I just don't see the transition ability, the puck carrying ability, the ability to push play. He seems to me to be a more read and react to what's going on around him player than a push play player. And he's very inconsistent too. So most of his season he wasn't very good. Then he was very good for 2 months. And then he started to fall off again at the end. So he's young, he's physically ready, but not, I don't think his overall game isn't ready. Like Misa,
Mhm.
we talked about it with Cam. Maybe he could he's probably going to do NCAA, but if you wanted to put him in the NHL, he might be able to. But I just don't know how much of an impact Frondell would have in the NHL. But
Mm.
that's just my opinion.
One thing I just was thinking about, and this is not anything that anybody's reported, but this is just putting together different reports that people have had. Like Cam mentioned that the Blackhawks might want to leapfrog the Sharks
Mm-hmm.
at number 2 so they can get Misa, basically make a trade with the Islanders so they can get Misa number 1.
Yeah.
If the Blackhawks like Misa so much, and if the Sharks like Misa, but maybe not as much as to that they need to pick him, they might have Rondell or Desnoyers or Martone or somebody closer up there. What kind of trade do you think the Blackhawks could make that was reasonable that you think could sway the Sharks? Probably
Yeah.
not Korchinski plus, right? Because he's the guy that's kind of his star has fallen a little bit. But
I mean, it's if they really loved Frondell or Dana Way, and they still were set on a center, or they love
you mean the
Martone.
Sharks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
the Sharks, and or they love Martone so much that they were like, doesn't matter, we're gonna pick him. But it seems like they like Misa so much. So but I would. I mean, Korchinski plus something, maybe that would be
That'll
an
be enough for
interesting.
you though. Yeah, but the number 3 pick and Korchinski for number 2. Because like I said, Korchinski's star has fallen a little bit.
I'd have to think about it.
Okay.
Um,
You would do the other guys though, right? The Renzel. I guess Renzel's probably
Probably
Renzel or
higher.
Vlasic would be the next, right? Levshunov
Yeah,
is probably too high to
yeah,
shoot
they wouldn't
for,
do
but
that. I'd think about it, but I honestly just even this conversation we've had, I think there's better ways to improve the defense than trying to get Korchinski. So I don't know.
how about Renzel or
Maybe Renzel. Renzel
okay.
would be a cool one because he does fit a
Yeah.
need in the Sharks like a
Okay.
lot. Um, and then you still get guys like there's still going to be a good player at 3, and I love
Yeah.
Porter Martone, so I would just pick Porter
Yeah,
Martone.
I don't know if Chicago would make that trade,
Hmm.
Renzel and a number 3 for number 2, but it just depends on how much do they like Misa.
Yeah, and you change
And
your philosophy because then you kind of you put Will Smith, and Will Smith's going to be a center at that point. Like
Well, no, there's always next year with Gavin McKenna. So
True.
who
Good point.
knows?
Doesn't matter. It happens. Yeah. So, but you change your philosophy, I think, because if you're getting Misa, then your high skill winger becomes Will Smith. If you're getting Porter Martone, your center is Will Smith, and your high skill winger is Martone. So
Maybe, yeah.
yeah, you
I mean,
change your
that's
philosophy.
yeah.
Like the A high skill winger, right? You still need like 3 other ones to round it out. We got Eklund too, but you still need probably a first line left wing and a top 2 right wing to complement it all. So
Do you have any
yeah,
other impressions of the combine yourself? I mean, you asked at the beginning just other stuff that I heard.
yeah,
I think I probably reported most of the stuff that I've heard. It's interesting that I mentioned William Karlsson last week, and it's kind of become a thing. James Myrtle, what I talked about, and then Elliot Freeman. Though Freeman poo-pooed it for the same reasons that I just did. That
yep.
Carlson's a good player on a good contract, so that actually doesn't make a lot of sense. So if you he will not be the guy that you would most want to move if you're Vegas. I guess is the right way to say it. But anyway, though,
I guess the other thing we should mention is like Misa did not finish in the top like 25 of any of the physical fitness tests.
oh, I don't know if that. I mean, I guess that's
I know.
news, but I don't know if that's that important. Macklin did do better last year, but
Yeah.
he wasn't exactly, except for the VO2 max, which is I think considered a little more important one. But
That's also been like consistently a Sharks staple is the VO2 max. Like that is a drafting staple for the Sharks for a long time.
has it been? Yeah.
Yeah, Josh Norris and everything too.
Well, there was actually a really cool thing that Angel.com did put out. They put out all the, I guess, the top 20 or top 30 fitness results over the history of the combine.
Mhm.
And you look at that, Josh Norris killed it.
He
He's the one
killed it.
guy that
Yeah,
absolutely killed it.
which is it's
Not
amazing because he can't stay healthy and he's fucking killed the combine.
but it is interesting just how good Norris was historically
Mhm.
for combine results, and I put it together. Other guys who other Sharks names that you'll see in this kind of top the history of fitness results for the combine. You'll see Artemi Knyazev, who did not turn out to be much. No Gregor, who had an NHL career, but obviously didn't hasn't had a great one. Brandon Swoboda
Mhm.
and Michael Fisher. So those are other Sharks picks that I you see in this NHL.com compilation that is linked at Sounds Like Hockey Now. It's an article that my writer Felicia Keller wrote. How did Misa fare in the 2025 draft combine fitness testing? But you see, Josh Norris is in the top of like that's one of the all-time great
Yeah, combine.
fit because he was well-rounded. He
Mhm.
didn't just like wasn't top 25 in just one category. He was in multiple categories. So very impressive.
Yeah. Um, I think also Mirko Mueller had like a great VO2 max if I remember right. I don't know if he's on
It
that
might
list.
have been. He's not on
Yeah, he's
the
passed.
all-time, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't mean anything. It's not like he famously can't do a push up, Michael Misa or whatever, or pull up.
yeah,
I mean,
Sam Bennett, right? Yeah.
yeah, like the Sam Bennett thing. Um, so it's it's nothing like that. It's just it's interesting because you think maybe that there would be something. It just kind of shows you that a lot of Misa's game isn't like the tools. It's just he's a smart player and he just
Mhm.
gets it. He gets it on the ice and things look easy to Michael Misa. And they've looked easy the entire year. So doesn't mean it's gonna look easy next year. And it's not like he's not a hard worker. He absolutely is on the ice. It's just that's just the kind of game that he has. And people have seen that and have
Mhm.
questioned like, oh, this guy going 1 overall when it's not like the physical tools are the best or like anything like that. Um, but that's just his game. He's just a faster Logan Couture.
Well, yeah, I mean, this feels like a time when teams are really just or not teams, I'm sorry, pundits, fans
Mhm,
that are picking apart these combine results and whatnot. But I don't know how much it means for the teams in the end.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because the teams
It's
have been building their list the whole year. They've been interviewing the players the whole year. They've been
mhm,
talking to players, taking them out to lunches and dinners the whole year. Not like the entire front office like at the combine, but the area scout will have
mhm,
taken a Michael Misa out or a Ben Kevin, or I'm trying to come up with prospects who are lower down the list, right? Um, those guys have been discussed, picked apart all year by the team. So I just did an article about that with Chris Morehouse. He's the director of amateur scouting for the Sharks. And he talks about how, yeah, if you're making your decisions off the combine, then you're not doing your job. Just like
Yep.
if you're making your decisions off of World Junior Championships, you're not doing your job. That it's about the body of work. And the teams have considered that. The scouts have considered that.
Mm-hmm. Brady Martin. Oh man, Brady Martin. I could not. You can't read an article without hearing about Brady Martin, which is hilarious to me. He's this year's, what was it? Cutter Gauthier came up out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere, but like, oh, this guy's going top 5. It's the
Oh,
same
I'm
thing.
excited to hear where Brady is on your list. Now, this isn't Keegan's mock. You don't have to tell us, but this isn't Keegan's mock draft, by the way. That's not who he thinks teams will pick.
Yeah.
It's his putting it out there rankings, his half wall hockey picks.
It's the thing that I use when I do the draft, like when
he picks along. Yep.
Which 3 of the 4 Calder Trophy finalists were half wall hockey Sharks. So.
Oh, were they really? Oh yeah, Dustin
Hudson,
Wolf,
no.
Hudson,
Mitchkoff, Hudson, and Celebrini.
Oh,
Celebrini does.
Okay, yeah.
I get to pick the same one as the Sharks sometimes, and Celebrini was like the easy one. That's like 100%.
But you know what? Let's give you credit though that you've always loved Wolf. I think I asked you point blank last summer before Wolf had proven himself. Would you give up a first round pick? Obviously not the number 1 pick, but you know what? I think it was the Pittsburgh pick that became Sam Dickinson. I don't know if you would give up Sam Dickinson for Dustin Wolf, but
that's tough. But
it was the number 14 pick at the time, though. It was before the Sharks had traded up for it and traded up with Buffalo for number 11. But I asked you point blank at some point, maybe during a mailbag, like, would you trade number 14 Pittsburgh for Dustin Wolf? And you said yes.
100%. And that was before we got Askarov, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
And you did also ask me what was the best goalie prospect, and I did answer Wolf between Askarov, Wallstedt, and Wolf, and that was like a year or so ago.
Yes,
and Wolf is great, and Askarov's great too. So it's not like they're both going to be good goalies. Just it's harder to bet on Wolf, right? Because he's so small,
right?
And Askarov is so physically gifted and the perfect size. So, but yeah, Wolf. Yeah, even surprised me this year. Like I thought he would do worse because they didn't give him like a good backup. They didn't give him a system. They traded Markstrom. I was like, I'm not entirely sold, but he did way better than I thought he would.
I'm really excited to see the half wall hockey track record in a couple of years. I talked again the conversation with Chris Morehouse. He says that in his opinion, you got to give it 5 years from the draft to really be kind of fairly sure about what happened. So that's for the Sharks. This is that'll be the 2020 draft. And so that's kind of, I think you started this in 2022, you said?
Yeah, 22.
So I'm very curious about 2027. At this point, we may see enough of a track record that Keegan may be the GM of the Sharks, and I may be begging Keegan to come on the show.
Very unlikely. No, I've been hitting on a lot of the top picks, and I've got some guys that are cooking still, but I do need a few more late round picks for me to be like, okay, maybe I've got some sort of idea of what I'm doing. Because like there's guys that are doing well as late round picks, but I need them to really come in as like you stole that guy,
Right. We'll see in a couple of years. Yeah,
we'll see. But I think I plan on doing it for at least 5 years total, to see where that team would shake out as a 5-year gap of drafting a team, but we'll see.
Honestly, you should just keep doing it. I mean, I think so far the results have been encouraging. At least it's not like you're striking out consistently. No, I mean.
This was all, and I want to like also preface that the person who did this first was Scouch. So Scouch did this from 2015 all the way on, and he still does it every year. So I stole that idea completely from Scouch. I want everybody to know that.
How's he doing with it? I mean, in terms of his track record.
At some point when I started doing it, he had claimed that he had more NHL games by his picks than any team other than, I think it was New Jersey. So if you go by NHL games, that he was doing very well at the time. I think that was in 2021, but I don't know how it's been since then. So he said a few I don't know what he picked on. And then Toronto's not picking a lot, right? Because he picks Toronto. So
He always
that's the
picks
problem.
Toronto. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Well,
he
that's
had
a
a
good
couple.
test, though, right? Yeah. Like, imagine if you were doing the Sharks picks from the last, last 5 years of the Doug Jr. regime. You have like the 2019 year, the Artemi Knyazov year, which has been a bust for the Sharks, but their highest pick was 48 that year. I think they only had like 5 picks that year, so that would have been a very tough one to hit on. But if you hit on that, then that's sort of, hey, that's on your track record. That's sort of like a pelt.
Well, and he also started it when Toronto was rebuilding, right? I think he picked Austin Matthews for like his first pick or whatever. Yeah. So like it's the same. I'm starting the same time frame as when he started it, basically, because then eventually the Sharks will have less picks. They're gonna have no picks in the first round. So yeah.
Well, excited for our 2027 podcast and revisiting the.
Yeah, I'll make a whole team. Hopefully, that's also the goal. It's like the depth it's hard to fill out. Like, I mean, but it's only been 3 years, so still got some time.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Cam Robinson. It is excellent as always. He's a great guest and lots of fun, interesting tidbits on the combine. Lots of gossip. Just perfect time of year for the
hot combine goss.
Hot combine goss. All right, y'all. See you guys. Have a good week.
Bye.
Cam Robinson is the content director and director of film scouting for Elite Prospects. You can find him at @hockey_Robinson on Twitter or subscribe to him on Elite Prospects Premium to read all of his combine and draft stories. But we assume that Cam is a busy man during draft season, with Elite Prospects just releasing their draft guide. He joins us today to talk about the upcoming draft, the prospects in San Jose, some trade rumors, which we're excited to get to talk about. So welcome back to the show, Cam.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate coming back on.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to have Cam on, and it's great to see who goes to the draft combine. So I want to give a lot of credit to Cam. I saw Cam Robinson there, Chris Peters, Corey Proman, Scott Wheeler, Stephen Ellis. Just want to shout out a few of the guys who are out there, just so when you guys read their coverage, you know that they were there on the ground. And anyway, Cam, so the first thing I just wanted to ask you then, just to kind of start off generally, what did you hear, if anything, about the Sharks at the combine?
Yeah. So just quickly on that group that you just mentioned there, that's like our roaming group throughout the year too. We inevitably end up having dinners together in Finland or Sweden or Texas or Buffalo, wherever we're at. So it's a good group that they definitely all put in the work for sure. But as far as San Jose, I reported some of it there. I wrote about some of it there as well. It's, I know that I'd heard it was out there a little bit that San Jose maybe was kicking the tires on getting up to number 1. Obviously, Matthew Schaefer makes more sense for the organization than a Michael Misa does. But at the same time, like the difference in value between the two is negligible, I would say. And so to spend the draft capital to move up that one spot, even in this class, it's going to be expensive. And so I don't think it makes a ton of sense. I'm sure that they did their due diligence and we're just checking in to see what that cost would look like. I don't think the Islanders are looking to move back either. I think that they would if it really made sense for them, especially to slide back one spot and still get a really high-end player. But it's, from everything I'm hearing from people in the industry on the team side is that, 1 and 2 are all but locked at this point. Matty Schaefer is going to end up a New York Islander. Michael Misa is going to end up a San Jose Shark.
Wow, that's kind of led straight into our next question, which was this possible scenario of moving up to 1, which seems to be the combine buzz kind of hypothetical, or even if the Blackhawks had jumped San Jose. Is there any interest in that or anything you heard about that too?
So the movement at the top of the draft, I do believe that Chicago has also inquired on what it would look like to get up to 1, not to get up to 2 necessarily. Although, they could look at getting up to 2 because their target is Michael Misa, right? That he makes more sense to them than a Matthew Schaefer does after they took Levshin off last year. So again, I don't think the Islanders and Matthew Darch, new GM there, is all that interested. I think that it's found money for them. It's this massive opportunity. They, super lucky to jump up to that spot. Their pipeline needs a lot of work. Why not just stay where you are and take the best player? Now, at the same time, I could, make a proposal that would make sense for them for San Jose or for Chicago. That would make a lot of sense for the Islanders. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense for San Jose or for Chicago. The interesting one to really watch, again, it doesn't really impact the Sharks, but is Utah. Is that they also got extremely lucky to jump up to 4. I do think that they are very interested in making that pick. I think they're very, very interested in Brady Martin. I also think that they are open to trading that pick as well. And I think that there might be maybe just a little tomfoolery going on there with how much they really like Brady Martin. And maybe that is to encourage a team sitting behind them at 5, 6, 7, 8 that was hoping a guy like Brady Martin, that specific player, would be there for them. And now they're like, oh no, he's going to go at 4. All reports are indicating Utah is very, very impressed with this kid, which they should be. Maybe that's going to be enough to get someone to bite and pay the freight that Utah's looking for so they can go up there and get their man. So just a little something maybe to keep in mind.
That's really interesting to me because that would imply that like Porter Martone would go after Brady Martin, which is mind-blowing to me. I just didn't consider it.
Martone's really interesting because, this is kind of like 2017, that draft class where there's a lot of centers at the top. Teams, they can't help themselves but take guys down the middle, and then someone's going to reach on a defenseman in the top 10 outside of Schaefer, right? Like that's just inevitable. It happens every single year. Someone's going to, whether it's HSN or it's Mertka or even Jackson Smith, someone's going to do that. And so if Martone's not going 3 to Chicago, which I don't think he is, does he end up falling down the board behind those centers and maybe a deep, and then all of a sudden he's sitting there at 7, 8, 9, which would be just tremendous value for somebody.
Going back to the Islanders at number 1, though, what kind of tomfoolery, love that word, what kind of tomfoolery were they looking for to move that number 1 pick? Not that you would know definitively, but just like in general, what kind of overpayment from either the Sharks or the Blackhawks do you think would make them say, hey, you know what, we'll give it up then?
I don't know. I put this out there on a different program, and I said, for Chicago, they'd be looking to give up number 3. They have picked 25, I believe, their early second as well, whatever that is, 34, and then a quality prospect. So you'd be giving up, so the Islanders would be slipping back 2 spots. They'd be getting another first, a very early second, and a good prospect. Yep. So that's what I mean, where I could make a justification for the Islanders to move back into that spot, and it would make a lot of sense, and they'd still get a high-end prospect at 3. But does it make a lot of sense for Chicago to do that, or for the Sharks? I saw someone put out there like, oh, well, just give them Dickinson and 2. And it's like, why would you do that? Right. The value there just doesn't make sense. It makes sense for the Islanders, right? Sure. But it doesn't make sense for the Sharks. So I did have somebody like reach out to me on the team side and said, like, you're probably not far off on the value of what it would cost in this draft just to move up 1 or 2 spots into that 1 hole. So you consider it like that, an extra first, a second, whether that's 2026, and then like a quality prospect.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know, Sharks fans. So guys, if you do want Matthew Schaefer, Sharks fans, that might be the cost. The Dickinson or the 2026 number 1, which is your entry into the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes. So yeah, maybe that's going to be, it's going to be a little bit
26 picks.
Don't move that.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a little bit tough. Yeah, I thought that for such a move to happen, it would have to be a situation where the Islanders knew that they weren't going to pick Schaefer, and so they're just looking for some value to move off that number 1 pick. But it sounds like the Islanders like Schaefer. So let's move on from Matthew Schaefer. Oh, the dream. It's dead. Sorry, guys. If it is the Sharks and Misa at number 2, when does he need to make a decision about going to the NCAA route?
Yeah, it's a very good question. The whole situation around this is yet to be made clear. So even teams don't understand exactly how this, because traditionally, right, when you draft a player out of that's going to college hockey out of the U.S. program, is that they have 4 years to sign them. If you draft them out of the CHL, you have 2 years to sign them. So a player like Michael Misa obviously is being drafted out of the CHL, but he might be playing in the NCAA next year. And there's a whole host of players like that, right? So the new CBA is, not quite done. All indications point that it's going to be done, but that teams will have clarity. And I've been talking to the teams about this for a while now, and they're like, "Yeah, we're supposed to know pretty soon. We're supposed to know pretty soon." And it's like, it's June 10th right now, right? We are. There is not much time here. I think everybody
2 weeks out, and I still don't have I still don't even know if my credential for the draft has been approved. I don't know about yours, Cam.
No, I don't think I got mine. I got approved for the hotel, so I assume they're letting me in the door. I mean, they'll probably just be happy to have anybody covering it this year.
Yeah, right.
But so I think everybody expects is that the new rules will be you get 4 years regardless of where you take them. Now, when Misa needs to let them know where he's going to play, or the Sharks, is that I fully expect, especially with San Jose, is that they're an organization that really values the development that the NCAA can bring. I think that they've shown that with their drafting history and developing. Every team in the NCAA would love to have Michael Misa play for them next year, but traditionally their spots are filled already. This year is a little unique because of the transition, and so teams are leaving spots open. We see so many guys in the portal because basically teams are telling them like, hey, like you're not going to have a spot here anymore. We're going to fill it up with CHL guys. You know, teams like Penn State and Michigan are like fully banking and like putting all their cards and all their eggs in a basket to land Gavin McKenna. So they're holding out a ton of NIL money too. So the longer Misa would wait to give that green light, hey, I'm going to go, the fewer options he would have at college, right? So he could go up to BU and be like, hey, I'm going to talk to San Jose and see what they want me to do. Maybe hold a spot, right? And I reported months ago that I think BU was really interested and provided a pretty nice framework to get Misa to commit to them. But the tremendous season that he had, especially in the back half, somehow he improved even more. It really it illustrated that he's not far away from being NHL ready. Do I think he should be in the NHL next season? I don't. And I'm sorry, Michael, I love you. And I think he thinks he should be there. And I think he would be fine. I just think same with Maddie Schaefer, honestly, especially with how young he is and all the time he missed. I think both guys would be served well to go to college for 1 year, add a little more maturity, strength, in the mind, everything, work on their skills, play against older players in a tough environment, in a fun environment, in a new environment, open their minds a little bit too, and then step in at the end of the year, be ready to roll. But I mean, obviously that's going to be a decision that, if it is San Jose, that Mike Greer and then they're going to come together with Misa and his reps and his family and decide what's best for him. But if I'm betting money on it, I'm thinking that they draft him and then you see him commit to a school early July.
I had two things that just spawned from that in my brain that you just talked about. One is like, how much can this NIL money really compete with like an NHL ELC money? It depends on, I guess, if you're an AHL or NHL for a hockey player. Like, is it that much money, or is it, comparatively? And then the other one is, what happens to the whole like NHL, CHL, AHL agreement, right? Can like I like go to the NCAA for a year and then go to the AHL the year after? Anyway, whole bunch of can of worms happening here.
Yeah. So as far as NIL money goes, it's not football, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And so guys aren't getting rich off of this. But when you sign your NHL contract, and if you don't play in the NHL, you get your $90,000, $95,000 signing bonus, right? And then your contract slides. So that's all the money you're getting. If you go to school and you're a player like Michael Misa, I think you could very reasonably expect him to be making more than that signing bonus playing in college next year. Now, if he's playing in the NHL, then he's making his $950K with bonuses potentially. Obviously, that's going to be a lot more. But teams aren't mad. Pardon me. Teams aren't upset about waiting an extra year to pay a guy to save that money. Misa would have an opportunity to make some money at school. None of these guys are going to be, poor off. They're all going to be rich. The money's going to come. So it's a nice little bonus. I talk about this with Gavin McKenna too. It's that, yes, there's going to be a team that's going to be able to offer him a few more dollars to play for them. But for him, it's like, does it really matter if I'm getting 25 grand more this year compared to what I'm going to make long-term? Now the whole CHL NHL agreement is just totally up in the air right now. Is that because yes, a player technically could go jump ship from the CHL, even as a draft eligible, play it in the AHL and then go, or the NCAA, then go to the AHL, then go to the NHL. And that is a route that is possible right now. If they play their draft eligible season in the CHL right now, then they cannot do that. Even if they transition to college hockey as 18, then they can't go. But all this language is expected to be cleared up magically in the next 17 days, I'm told. So we'll see. Yeah.
Well, there is talk. I've heard, you probably heard the same thing. And I think it was put out there too, that a CBA might be coming soon, even before the draft. And so that might be all part of it. What I wonder with all this too, is that, will this mean that Michael Misa, if he does go to NCAA route, will he have that leverage that NCAA draft picks have? Like Will Smith has exercised, I think, or Cutter Gauthier, obviously, I'm not going to sign with you, trade me, that kind of stuff. Like, is he going to, does that come part and parcel with all this, you think?
I mean, everybody has that. Everybody has it. The difference is that when you're a college player, is that you had that don't sign me, or because I won't play for you, I'm not going to sign with you. I can just wait and become a UFA. Whereas CHL players was like, I'm not going to sign with you. Now I'm back in the draft. right? And now I'm also at the whims of whoever takes me again 2 years later. So he'll have the same benefit that he always had. We'll just see. I think it's just going to, like I said, I think it's just going to be 4 years regardless. And that's just going to change everything. So it's like you draft a guy out of the CHL and he doesn't want to sign with you. Well, he's got to play 4 years of junior or move around until he becomes a free agent. And it's the same thing if you go to school, you just have to stay at school. But none of these guys are going to do that because they're too good. They need to get into pro too quickly.
Well, okay. It sounds like then maybe the Sharks won't get to see too much of Misa at training camp. Then I think a lot of fans would have looked forward to that and been excited about that. And I, like you mentioned, Michael sounded like he thinks he's NHL ready too, but maybe next year. But I wanted to ask too, Cam, you seem pretty certain that it will be Misa at number 2. Obviously things can change next couple of weeks, but do you have any sleepers if not Misa at number 2? I know Scott Wheeler mentioned Caleb Desnoyers. I heard Anton Frondel at the combine as a possibility at number 2. Do you have any other or one of those two guys in your mind?
I would be surprised if San Jose went with either of those players. I think so. I know that Scott Wheeler and Corey Proman that they found at least one executive that said that they had Frondel as their top 4 in the draft. I have yet to find one, and I've pulled not all 32 teams, but a good number of clubs, and I've asked them, who's the top prospect in this class, who's the top forward in this class. I've even asked specifically about Anton Frondel. There are some teams that really like him and that do see him in that 3 to 5, 3 to 6 range. And then there's organizations that see him, view him as we do at Elite Prospects, which is good player, nice upside, physically mature, but maybe more destined for like you're a pretty good second line center and not someone that you're really going to jump the queue for. So if I wanted to put out a dark horse, maybe it's Porter Martone just because of the uniqueness of what he could potentially bring, right? He has the size. He's a playmaker off the wing, arguably the top playmaker in the class, and has a rocket of a shot. Gets to the net, can score dirty goals. He doesn't have that fire constantly burning, but you might be able to ignite it. And I've said this a couple times in different places, is that he reminds me a little bit of a Todd Bertuzzi, who was a finesse skill player in junior, but did jack up a lot of penalty minutes just because he was so large, but he drafted high and they expected him to be kind of a meat and potatoes, throwing hands all the time. And that wasn't who he was. So he came to Vancouver and he was unleashed offensively. And then as he grew and matured, then he started to become more of a beast and like the top power forward in the game. And I think that Martone, while not a traditional power forward right now, could certainly develop into one with that silky playmaking, the handles, and the shot combination. It's very unique, especially in this class. So I don't think he's going number 2 to San Jose. But if I was to draw one connection, maybe that could be the guy.
Give us a percentage on Misa to the Sharks. What do you think?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
On
85.
June
85 is pretty good.
85,
Like,
85.
Yeah.
right. So maybe we had like a little bit of Sharks fans can hope for some chaos, maybe. But
there's always room for chaos, right? There's always room for chaos on draft day. Anything can happen. Watch them trade the pick. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Any thoughts on Shark-like players or Mike Greer-like picks at number 30 or in 33 if they keep those 2 picks?
Shark-like players, hey? I mean, like it's the draft boards are going to be so incredibly varied this year between team to team that it's going to be nuts. And we hear it every year. Some GM gets up to the podium and be like, we can't believe we got him there. We can't believe we got our guy at that spot. And lots of times they're just blowing smoke. This time they're going to be serious, right? This time they might get their 8th ranked player at 33. Like that could happen. It's going to be so crazy, but I have little insight into who that could be for them. A guy like Shane Van Sage. So, American guy playing college hockey, big power forward, probably better a bottom 6 guy, but it's like this guy's going to play games for sure. And he's going to be heavy and he's going to be a playoff performer, and you're adding some more meat to a lineup that has a lot of skill already. So someone like that kind of jumps out to me. Jacob Rombach, really like 6'6" defenseman, one of the best retrieval guys in the draft, kind of unheralded a little bit for most of the year. And now people are starting to get him on the radar a little bit. I think he's an early day 2 guy that just add more depth. They wanted a defenseman, right? And Matt Schaefer, he is not Matt Schaefer, but maybe a kid like Cameron Reed slips, who's just 6 foot, great skater, has offense, has intelligence. I think with that IQ could be a really interesting player on like a second pairing, just add more depth and more playmaking and transition work to a blue line core. There's going to be a ton of options for those early picks on day 2.
I like Van Sage. He had a great quote during his post combine fitness interview, I think maybe I asked him just about his style of game and how it could kind of fit what the Sharks want, and he just said, "I play one way. I play one way only."
Yes, he does. Hard, hey? Yeah. Yeah, he's a big boy too. Yeah.
I want to ask you too about Sharks, current Sharks kind of prospects or people in the Shark system. Last year we had you on, and you weren't the highest on Will Smith last year, and I admire you. I give you props for coming back on, Cam, because Cam never shies away from, hey, I might have been a little wrong, or I might have been very wrong, or hey, I was right. But Cam will be there. He'll step up and talk about it if something goes not quite his way. So anyway, so let me ask you now then. So did Will Smith change your mind in the second half of this season?
Will Smith has been changing my mind little by little for a while now, I'll say. But yes, absolutely. The second half of the season, I'll blame some people on the team side too, who will sometimes, I just mean like I'm constantly talking.
It's fair.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm constantly talking with
yeah.
smart people who've been doing this longer than I have. And I don't take their word as gospel, but it will, it always buries in. And I look at things from when they're saying, look at it. And, I just kept waiting for him to hit a wall. Right. It was very easy for him at the program at the U18 level. And I was like, it's not going to be as easy for him at college. It's going to be, nope. The pros, and it's not going to be, and we saw at the beginning of the year there was, right, and
sure.
Should have been, right, as there should have been. It's a big jump up, but I thought he managed it very well, and we saw the back half of the season, the creativity, the confidence with the puck, the calmness with the puck started to show itself again, something that we saw at every other level, and it's like, man, this is going to be easy for him at this level too, and that's basically all I need to see. And if they do land Michael Misa here, you have Celebrini, who is just an absolute stud at 1, and then Misa, who will also be a stud at 2. And now you move Smith over to the wing. You free him up to create less defensive responsibility. You get someone who can finish on the other side. It's like, now you're cooking, right? That's that your second line could be dynamite, or your first line, whichever you want to do, how you want to mix and match them too. So, no, I think Will Smith has proven myself and others wrong at kind of every turn, and cheers to him, man. I was always rooting for the kid. Like, I'll give him his flowers, and heck of a player, very creative. I just was waiting for the time when that kind of free flowing offensive scheme would be harder to institutionalize, and he's finding a way at every level.
Yeah, and definitely in your kind of defense too, because I work in the same way. Like, we go to a lot of scouts, team people with, combined hundreds of years of professional hockey experience, and they tell you something, and you have to weigh it, and you have to consider it. You can't just say, "Oh, I see something," and so sometimes they're wrong too. Obviously, obviously, if every guy was right, then every guy would be winning Stanley Cups every year, and of course, only one team wins it a year. So yeah, so no, definitely, and props to you for just admitting flat out, saying, "Hey, maybe I was a little off about the guy." Where do you see Will's kind of ceiling and development right now then at this point?
Like, his ceiling is super, super high, right? Especially if you can free him up offensively too, because that's what you're going to pay him for, right? You don't need him to be that two-way horse like Celebrini is going to be. And so, I don't think it's out of the question to think that this kid could have 90-point seasons in his future. Like with heavy assist totals. He has a good shot too, but it's just, he obviously prefers the pass and the creation first and foremost. So yeah, no, like if he went out there and put up a 30-60 year, like, I wouldn't blink in the middle of his 20s in the kind of the peak of his career.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the Sharks transform from being, let's call it, a bad team to a good team. Like, because there's a little bit of less defensive responsibility when your team is god awful anyway.
It's going to be good though. They got so many talented players coming up, and I think that they'll have the cap space too as it goes up, that they can then infuse some veteran talent, go out and overpay for somebody on the market when it's time. And that's just kind of how you do it. You raise your kids slowly, you get them to a point, and then you're like, okay, we'll overpay this guy that's going to put us over the hump and have that experience and leadership and come in and be a big game player. And it's going to be fun. It's been some tough years in San Jose, but good times are coming.
Yeah. Any other prospects that you want to shout out from the San Jose system? We've got like Musty, Chernisov, Dickinson, Halton. Anybody that caught your eye this year?
I mean, Haltonen's, can that kid ever shoot the puck? Hey, holy
sure. Yeah.
moly! And like that's not new, but it has just continued to get. It just explodes off his stick. Like he's going to score goals in the NHL. He's not a perfect player by any means. He's not the fleetest of foot. He's not the most defensively responsible player, but he can score goals. He knows how to get into spots. He knows how to unleash it quickly, and that is going to serve him very, very well, whether that's on a second power play unit, right? Load him up with offensive zone starts. He's going to need a little bit more time, but he's got a chance to be an asset. Dickinson, not the highest on his brain. I'm still not the highest on his brain, but I think that he this year took another step forward defensively, which is a great sign.
He's
great
proving me wrong.
Right? Excellent sign for it. He's a big body. He can skate. He knows how to create offense. And now he's starting to focus a little more on that defensive side of the thing, the physicality. Fun guy too, right? Fun guy to deal with. And so I don't think he's your like traditional number one that you want to roll out there for 28 minutes a night. But if you can get someone ahead of him and he can be your number two, and maybe that's on a first pair, or maybe that's like the driver on the second pair. And now you can match up as you see fit against the best team's offensive with your top pair guy and let him run around a little bit more. But at the same time, like Evan Bouchard has suffered from the same things. A former London Knight, right? He was shooting the puck a ton and getting lots of points, but wasn't a great skater either. Or Dickinson can certainly move. The physical tools on Dickinson are through the roof.
Yeah.
So I think that the future is really bright for him too.
Do you think that Dickinson plays the entire season with the Sharks next year? Obviously, Dickinson has signed his ELC, so it's either the CHL or NHL for him next year.
Yeah, that's a tough spot for him. I hate that. I hate that spot too. Because what do you do? What do you send him back to London to do? Right? We'll go play 38 minutes, a night, and what? Right? Like
a challenge,
and right, and then like completely destroy any of his pace. And we see that when guys play too heavy of a minutes, they have to pace themselves, and so then all of a sudden now they're not ready for the NHL game. So I think you do have them in San Jose for the year, and that's in and out of the lineup. Right. That's in and out of the lineup. Maybe get him down there for a little conditioning stint down to the Barracuda for a bit, get a little look down there, get that pace of play up, shelter him a little bit, give him opportunities, pull him out, and just have him watching from the sky and working with the training staff and the coaching staff and everybody. And maybe he'll surprise me. Maybe he'll end up playing 80 games for the Sharks next year and look fine in kind of a third pair role. But yeah, you have that opportunity to, just massage him in when it works for you, rather than, I'm not going to say stunting his development going back to the OHL, but I don't think it'd be great for him to take any steps forward.
All right, well, Cam, really appreciate your time here. We're going to finish up with just a little bit about trade goss from the Combine and things that you heard and things that might work for the Sharks. So you reported that Keandre Miller was available. And what do you think the Rangers will want for him? The Sharks as trade partners, I'm not sure about the fit there. For one thing, the Sharks won't offer sheet him. I doubt it, at least, because that means putting their 2026 first in play. But anyway, what do you think the Rangers will want for him?
Well, they'll want more than a first and a third, late first and a third. I can tell you that much, because I think teams, right, and teams are absolutely weighing that option. Is that the Rangers are asking for more than that or different than that, and so teams that are looking to be playoff teams or in that zone are like, we can just offer sheet them for 5.5 or whatever, give them the first and the third, and be on our way. And I think that the Rangers have like contingency plans in place that if it gets to that point, that they'll move cap out and they'll just match. And then, that's just how it's going to be. So yes, I think that they are looking, especially you were about to see them give up or keep the 12th overall pick. I believe. I think they're going to hold on to that pick and give up their unprotected 2026. Which is risky. As I said, don't give up unprotected 2026. But you don't go out and trade for JT Miller because you think your team sucks and it's going to suck long term, because he's got a long contract. So they're expecting to not miss the playoffs next year, and they're going to bet on their group, and they're going to give them that kind of boost by being like, no, we're going to move off this and this 2026 pick and trust that you guys are going to get us there. So they're looking for now pieces, which is interesting because Keandre Miller is a now piece. But I think he's kind of just wore out his welcome there, potentially off ice too. He's another one kind of like Dickinson with all the physical gifts in the world, but maybe not the greatest mind. And I've heard kind of some rumbling, some things, like, not that he has personally done anything off ice. It's just that it hasn't maybe been a fit, or it's run its course there. So yeah, I think it'll be more of a hockey trade, to be honest with you, if the Rangers get their way.
Yeah. And that leads me to kind of my final question in terms of realistic paths for the Sharks to get better this offseason. And Mike has already stated, of course, he could just be playing coy, but he's already said that he basically has no plans to give out any long-term contracts. I think we're talking like 6-year plus contracts. So that could already eliminate guys like Marner, Gavrikov, Provorov down the line. And they probably won't offer sheet anybody, because that might be putting their 2026 first in play, which I doubt that they will. And in terms of making a hockey trade, the Sharks and the Rangers may not be the best fit, because the Rangers want to win now. The Sharks, they have a lot to trade, but it's all in futures mostly. Exactly. And so what do you see, just off the top of your head, just kind of realistic paths for the Sharks then?
I think that they would like to take a little bit of a step forward. You want to start getting some winning culture built in with those young players. You don't want them to start to get used to losing for too long. But at the same time, like I mentioned, this isn't the time to go out there and really blow it up on a UFA deal. So maybe add around the fringes, right? Mm-hmm. There's always market inefficiencies out there where some guy is overlooked and you can get him later in the summer for a song on a 1-year deal. And then, oh, looky that, we can deal him at the trade deadline and get more assets back, right? So I love that model. I think they'll do some of that. Maybe it is on the trade market, right? There are teams out there that would be looking to move some pieces now in their mid to late 20s for futures as they start to retool themselves, whether that's like a Jonathan Marchessault, who's attached to a long contract, which probably doesn't fit so well with San Jose, but those type of players that, suddenly they're on a team that was supposed to be good and it's not, and they need to start looking at rebuilding themselves. But yeah, I think it's probably going to be like, stay the course, add around the edges for now, wait for the guys to take another step, 2, maybe 3 years. That's when you want to go out and really, really spend big. Now that said, these guys haven't had a chance to extend yet, but that 2026 free agent class could be something special. So that might accelerate that if all of a sudden Kaprizov's on the market and they're like, we want him next to Celebrini. Let's go do everything we can to go bring him into Northern California.
Yeah, it's still kind of an open question what the Sharks will do. That was actually the number one question that a lot of people that I talked to at the Combine, be it agents or team people, what are the Sharks going to do? What are the Sharks going to do? But yeah, like you mentioned, Cam, I don't think it's a time for them yet. I don't think that they think it's a time for them yet, which is the more important than what we think. But anyway, Keegan, you got anything else for Cam here?
I think that's all set. You gave us our the tight 30 minutes. Right.
Yep. Well, Cam, thank you so much for your time. Want to leave off with follow Cam at hockey_Robinson and go Elite Prospects Plus or Premium to sign up to read Cam's work. And the Elite Prospects 2025 draft guide is out. It's I think the most. It's the biggest guide I think that's out there I've seen over the years in terms of just the breadth of coverage, how many prospects that they mentioned in the book.
It's a tremendous resource for sure. I joke around that, you can seem like a genius after you read it, right, on players you've never seen before, because we do all the work and you get to look smart. So yeah, nearly 2,000 pages when you include all the scouting reports. We have a sick group of scouts on this team that just all they want to do is watch hockey and write reports. So it's it's good. Definitely want to get your hands on that.
All right, Cam. Well, thanks a lot, buddy. And I will see you in LA, hopefully.
See you there.
Thanks, Cam.
Thanks, boys.